Hello students, I'm Dr. Radha from IET Bhadal. Ethics. The principles and values used by a person to govern his actions and judgments are called ethics. Ethics are about conduct. In an awkward situation, ethics guide about doing the right thing. Every organization has a code of ethics that composes of a set of principles that serves as the basis of guidance for the organization's decisions for business. The ethical philosophy of an organization has bearing on its policies, productivity, employees, customers, and reputation. Business ethics is an elemental term which is applicable to all workplaces. Regardless of the nature and function of an organization, an unethical employee encourages dishonesty and corruption, ending up as a liability for the organization. Therefore, it becomes imperative for an organization to encourage its employees to adhere to ethical behavior. Ethics can be related to the leadership or the employees of the organization. Leadership ethics, the ethics that leaders exhibit, have a strong impact on the morale and loyalty of the workers. These ethics determine discipline procedures and the acceptable behavior for all workers in an organization. High ethical standards of leaders set the benchmark for the rest of employees to meet same level. Ethical leadership also augments companies' reputation in the financial market and community, and it proves beneficial for the business in the long run. Employee ethics. Ethical behavior among personnel in the organization ensures the honesty and integrity in delivering duties and responsibilities. Employees who adhere to ethics to guide their behavior also adhere to the policies and rules while striving to attain organizational goals. Ethical employees tend to maintain quality standards in their work, amplifying the company's reputation for quality products and services. There are two approaches to ethical behavior. These are individual approach and communal approach. Both of these approaches incorporate different views of moral responsibility and the kinds of ethical principles to be used to resolve the problems. Individualistic approach. This approach pertains to the moral responsibility and proposes that every person in an organization is morally responsible for his or her own behavior, and efforts to change that behavior should focus on the individual. Communal approach proposes that individuals do not thrive in isolation but exist as members of communities. To a certain extent, these communities are responsible for the behavior of their members. Therefore, it becomes important to understand and change the behavior of communities if we want to mend the behavior of an individual belonging to a particular community. To tackle the problems related to ethics, both of the approaches should be taken into account as the individuals and social communities are inseparable. Both complement each other. For example, earlier an alcoholic was viewed as an individual with problems. Treatment used to focus on helping the individual deal with this problem. But today, the alcoholic is seen as a part of a dysfunctional family system that reinforces alcoholic behavior, and in many cases, the behavior of the alcoholic requires to change the entire family situation. These two approaches also lead to different ways of evaluating moral behavior. Many ethical issues in the workplace undertake an individualistic approach. All efforts are focused to uphold the good of the individual and his fundamental rights, like right to freedom of expression or the right to privacy. On the other hand, communal approach promotes attaining the common good by taking into account various ways in which actions or policies promote social justice and forbid the behaviors that harm the entire community. There are 8 elements of an ethical organization. These are respect. Mutual respect must exist among employees and between employer and employees. Things will not happen if mutual dislike prevails. Maintaining cordial relationships among employees is of utmost importance. If existing relationships start to weaken due to any reason, corrective action should be taken timely. Second element is honor. Good people form an essential part of good ethics by becoming the representatives for doing things right. Special attention should be given to these strong performers and employees who epitomize the spirit of the organization. Top achievers are not always judged in terms of sales. Management should appreciate the people who exhibit commendable behavior. Ethical behaviors must be acknowledged and honored publicly as well as privately. Another factor is integrity. In an ethical organization, employees should not lie, steal, or cheat. An individual should always stand by his word. One should treat others the way one wants to be treated by them. Management should refrain from hiring or retaining people who lack integrity. Otherwise, employees, customers, and vendors will not trust them. This lack of trust can pose serious problems for business. It must be ensured that no one sells the company's values short to make a quick buck. Such kind of practice is unethical as well as unprofitable. Fourth is customer focus. Customer is of utmost importance for any business. Educate customer focus underpins the responsibility of the organization towards market. As business decisions have an effect on all stakeholders like employees, investors, business partners, and ultimately the customers, serving them is crucial part of organization's ethical responsibility. Selling wrong or misleading products or services or information not only risks compromising the ethics but also the long-term health of the company. Result orientation. The organization should not aim for results at any cost. All actions to achieve results must be done within the value system of the company. Results should be attained in the context of developing products according to customers' needs, and these should be produced and delivered at a fair price to all the parties involved. For an ethical company, results are more than sales figures. These are the benchmarks for the future and goals for the present. Then there is risk taking. The organizations that are not risk averse prosper and grow. By not opting for safe paths, grand companies innovate, encourage out of the box thinking approach, and experiment. These companies reinvent themselves and reward the risk takers. As long as companies' ethical philosophy is adhered to, risk taking poses no threat to ethics. Great companies attract those employees who are willing to take risk. Employees are encouraged, supported, and rewarded for taking calculated risks. If the risk pays off, the risk taker shares the award. If the risk pays off, the risk takers share the rewards. If the risk does not pay off, after action review is done to analyze what went wrong and what should be done in future to avoid this trap. Next is passion. Great organizations are comprised of the people who are extremely passionate about their work. These people do not work for salary, but for the thrill and the challenge of the job. These employees are highly motivated, excited, and believe that their work can make a difference. Without the passion, employees put in a minimal effort in the work. And last is persistence. People in the outstanding organizations have the will to keep trying. They keep working even when results are not as desired or when customers refuse to buy. This persistence is the outcome of passion for work. These people work harder, take risks, keep customers' needs in focus, and behave with honor and integrity, and they are not satisfied until they achieve the goals and the results that are expected. How to encourage ethical behavior among employees? There are certain ways for organizations to encourage the ethical behavior. Some of these are communicating the code of ethics. The most important step to encourage ethical behavior among employees is by establishing and communicating a code of ethics. Code of ethics provides the direction and guidelines for the ethical behavior. Employees should be made aware of the code of ethics either through manuals or posters or training. This facilitates the employees to have a clear idea of the management's expectation with respect to employees' conduct. Then, managers as role models. Having managers as role models is another way of promoting ethical behavior. Managers must be chosen with care and due consideration to achieve this objective. Employees tend to emulate their managers. Ethical behavior displayed by managers lends more credibility to the code of ethics. Further, if managers strictly adhere to ethical standards, employees feel less reluctant to oppose the guidelines laid out for ethical behavior. Punitive actions for unethical behavior. It's better to curb any malpractices concerning unethical behavior in the initial stages rather than allowing it to flourish throughout the organization. Imposing ban on unethical behavior helps the employees to understand its repercussions. Organization should frame well-written disciplinary measures that are to be taken against employees found guilty. For example, if an organization promotes sales at all costs, then employees might resort to any right or wrong method to achieve their targets. Conversely, if the ethical code is strict about the means as much as the results, the employees will abstain from using the wrong methods to achieve results. Rewards for the ethical behavior. Employee adhering to ethical practices should be aptly recognized and rewarded. This strengthens ethical behavior. This also becomes an inspiration to co-workers. Therefore, identifying and rewarding employees who stick to ethical practices regardless of enticing situations is very crucial. It is thus primarily the responsibility of the management to promote ethical behavior among their employees. The organizational culture, together with its mission and vision statement, influences the ethical behavior. Now, what are the values that affect ethical behavior? Martin Seligman, in his book Authentic Happiness, reviewed certain core values. These virtuous values exert great influence on the ethical behavior and appear to have universal appeal. The values are wisdom and knowledge. This refers to the capacity to take information and convert it to something useful. Wisdom comes from an individual's capacity to interpret information in a knowledgeable way so as to make wise decisions. When faced with an ethical dilemma, one must know what to do and the difference between right and wrong. Self-control. This refers to the ability to avoid unethical temptations. The ability to take the ethical path entails commitment to the value of acting with restraint. Ethical people have institutional profit and goodwill as a priority and not self-interest or personal gain. Third is justice and fair guidance. This value is regarding fair treatment of people. Justice is served when individuals observe that they get a reasonable return for the energy and effort made for a particular purpose. For example, a leader's commitment to justice is tested during routine allocation of organizational resources. Ethical leaders value and embrace fair advice and guidance, and no special treatment is given to certain individuals and groups. Then, value of transcendence. It is a spiritual value that recognizes that there is something past oneself that is more eternal and powerful than the individual itself. Without this value, one may be inclined to selfishness. Leaders who are driven mainly by self centeredness and the use or misuse of personal power have limited success and genuineness. Then, love and kindness. This value refers to the expression through words and deeds of love and compassion. In an organizational perspective, love refers to a strong positive reaction towards co-workers, groups, or conditions. A compassionate organization permits for the expression of love, kindness, and benevolence among people. Courage and integrity. This is a courage to act ethically and with integrity. These values involve discriminating right from wrong and act accordingly. These values encourage a person consistently to do what is right with no worry for personal consequences, even under most tempting situations. In reality, these 6 types of the virtuous values are knotted together. For example, the ability to manage resources fairly or to tender right direction to stakeholders is a practice supported by courage and integrity. Difficult choices exercised during the distribution of limited resources leave a number of individuals and groups with far less than they would desire. The only saving grace of such actions is the perception among employees that such decisions are made with fairness and integrity. It's easier to accept unpopular decisions under this belief that these are chosen fairly with integrity. Values, attitudes, and ethical behavior are interdependent and closely related with each other. The values lead to attitude building, and attitude leads to ethical behavior. For example, the values like wisdom and knowledge, they result into the attitude of experience, leading to the wisdom that helps in converting information to knowledge. And an outcome is the ethical behavior that entails using knowledge to ethically solve the problems and to do what is right. Value, self-control. Attitude. The self-control refers to managing reactions to challenging situations and temptations successfully. And the ethical behavior? This means to lay personal interest aside and acting with neutrality by doing what is right. The value is justice. Attitude, acting justly and fairly, is a golden rule of ethical behavior. And the ethical behavior pertaining justice is to involve to set up fair and mutually agreed upon norms and manage these reasonably to all the people. Then there is value of transcendence. The attitude is that this is the belief in some power and source outside oneself. It leads to reduction in self-serving actions and it increases humility. The behavior is it is to keep institutional and stakeholders' interest above one's self-interest. It also includes recognizing personal principles which are aligned with organizational mission. Then there are values of love and kindness, which results into the attitude that it is about treating people with kindness. It helps enlarging the pool of positive affection and love among people. The behavior, by recognizing and encouraging others for their positive contributions. Then there is value of courage and integrity. These values call for the courage to do the right things every time without bothering about the personal consequences. And it involves making popular decisions which are based on just deliberation of the facts. Putting virtuous values into practice. Now the question arises as to what organizational leaders at different levels of hierarchy should do on a proactive basis to promote ethical behavior among us implies. There are 5 principles that facilitate to put values into practice. First, there should be no gap between knowledge about what to do and actual actions to be done. Sadly, people fail to do it often. Maxwell has explained that in spite of their knowledge, many people fail to do the right things. This is because they don't act wisely. Second, managerial leaders must be very conscious about people joining the organization. Many organizational leaders believe that selecting people for their values is equally important as selecting people for their skill set. Jim Collins, in his famous book Good to Great, emphasizes that long term success of a company is highly dependent on the fact whether there are right people in place or not. It's very crucial to select the people who share organization's righteous values. It helps building an ethical culture and ensures long-term business success. Third, new employees should be made to mingle with the organization. This helps to advance virtuous values. Compulsory employee orientations should be used as an opportunity to inculcate the organization's value system. Another powerful method of promoting values among new joinees is to hear and see how managerial leaders adopt and support core values and how these values are acknowledged through the actions of subordinates. And fourth, accountability and follow up are two significant actions to successfully put core values into practice. Organizational systems and procedures tend to link words with actions by reminding people about their commitments regarding ethics. Words and deeds are of utmost importance in organizations which give emphasis on behavioral integrity, as the alliance of the words and deeds helps promoting an ethical work culture. Finally, managerial leaders can positively impact the practice of ethical behavior by being fair and unbiased during the allocation of resources. The managerial leaders have to manage 5 key resources. These are employees, money, information, capital assets, and time. Allocation and distribution of these resources can be done either in fair or in unfair manner. Managerial leaders who adhere to ethical values and practices are more likely to deal fairly than those who do not. Behavioral standards usually include detailed guidelines for acting within a specific workplace area. It is expected that managerial leaders as well as employees act ethically as per virtuous core values of the organization. Preset behavioral standards and well-written codes of ethics lead to prevalence of ethical behavior by reinforcing the virtual values. Clearly explained criteria for expense reimbursements in an organization is one such example. Now coming down to behavioral standards and code of conduct. Code of ethical conduct can be categorized into 3 types. Type 1 includes inspirational idealistic codes of conduct specifying global themes such as be honest, show integrity, practice wise decision making, etc. Such themes are not anchored to specific behaviors or situations. Type 2 is regulatory codes of conduct, which clearly define acceptable behavior. Now, this type of code is designed to help as a jurisprudential tool when disputes occur. It is a more of a do and do not approach. Type 3 includes educational or learning oriented codes of conduct. These offer principles to guide decision making and behavioral reactions into likely situations which can occur. This approach is compatible with building a learning organizational culture. Now, there are certain activities which can encourage ethical decision making in groups. In an organization, the decisions made by groups and individuals influence the overall image of the company. Therefore, to keep the image of the organization positive, it's important to train employees so as to facilitate ethical decision making. Making employees face challenging situations through activities related to the ethical issues helps to keep the issues alive in their minds. This also helps to develop a decision making process with ethical decisions as a routine outcome. One of the activity is role play. In this activity, the groups are led through such setups where it is very tempting to make an unethical decision. These situations may pertain to the cases of, let us say, theft in the organization, making decisions for the personal gain rather for the gain of the organization, promoting employees who are personally close, or sharing vital secrets of the company for the lure of money, etc. etc. These scenarios are presented and group members are asked to ponder over the given situation. Afterwards, the members discuss their approach to decision under the given circumstances and pros and cons of each decision. Groups may also put up a short skit in which they can demonstrate their decisions and the further repercussions. The second activity is ethics and values. In this activity, the groups are told to define the meaning of ethics so as to enable the employees to have a clear understanding of these. Group members are further asked to make a list of their own values, principles, and personal things that they value. For an employee, honesty and punctuality may be the values, whereas family and bank balance may be the things he values. When the list of each group member is ready, trainer or managerial leader should take note of these values and things which may lead to unethical behavior. For example, money as a value may result into an employee indulging in unlawful means to make a quick buck. Similarly, free time as a value may lead to sitting idle or showing low productivity at work. The group members are then asked to list the benefits of the ethical behavior for the organization. Group then also pens down the harms that unethical behavior can bring on the organization. For example, losing the customers, dissatisfied employees, or lack of ease at the workplace. All this creates awareness about ethical behavior, its benefits, consequences of indulging in unethical behavior among us employees. Another activity is decision making strategies. This activity involves developing a process for decision making by the members of the group. Chances are that instead of developing a concrete process, group members start coming up with query list to discuss measures to be taken to ensure ethical decision making. For example, most important values for making a particular decision or serious repercussions if something goes wrong. So students, let's now summarize what we have learned. The principles and values used by a person to govern his actions and judgments are called ethics. Ethics are about conduct. In an awkward situation, ethics guide about doing the right thing. Ethics can be related to the leadership or the employees of the organization. The code of ethics leaders use determines the discipline, procedures, and the acceptable behavior for all the workers in an organization. Ethical behavior among the workforce in the organization ensures that employees do their duties with honesty and integrity. Employees who use ethics to guide their behavior adhere to employee policies and rules while striving to meet the goals of the organization. Thank you.